Welcome to Celestial Zodiac. Today we're breaking down Uranus retrograde by zodiac sign. How this unpredictable and awakening cycle expresses itself differently depending on where Uranus is traveling through the zodiac. Uranus rules rebellion, innovation, independence, disruption, awakening, and sudden change. It governs the urge to break free from limitation, challenge outdated systems, and think differently. Uranus is the part of us that resists confinement and seeks authenticity at any cost. When Uranus retrogrades, the disruption doesn't disappear. It turns inward. Instead of external shocks, internal restlessness increases. Instead of rebellion against others, rebellion against yourself begins. Uranus retrograde is less about visible chaos and more about internal awakening. Uranus is not concerned with comfort. It exposes where you've outgrown structures, identities, or expectations. When Uranus is active, change feels sudden. When Uranus retrogrades, change feels psychological, like something inside you can no longer pretend. On a practical level, Uranus governs freedom, technology, innovation, social systems, individuality, and the future. It reveals where stagnation has set in, and where authenticity has been suppressed. Ultimately, Uranus shows where you need liberation. During Uranus retrograde, that liberation begins internally. So what happens when Uranus retrogrades? Uranus is retrograde for nearly half the year. Because of that, the retrograde itself isn't dramatic in the way Mercury or Mars can be. The impact is subtle but profound. External shocks may quiet down, but internal tension increases. You may begin questioning long-standing habits, beliefs, relationships, or identities that once felt stable. Restlessness builds beneath the surface. It can feel like you're outgrowing something but don't yet know what replaces it. Uranus retrograde exposes suppressed individuality. Or have you been playing it safe? Or have you been tolerating predictability at the cost of authenticity? Or have you resisted change because stability felt safer? This retrograde doesn't destroy structures like Saturn. It destabilizes illusions of control. Sudden realizations are common. Mental breakthroughs. Unexpected shifts in perspective. Quiet detachment from roles you once identified with. When Uranus stations direct, external change often follows the internal awakening. Uranus retrograde feels strongest during the following events. It conjuncts your Sun, Moon, Ascendant, or personal planets. It activates your identity or life direction. You've been suppressing individuality. You're clinging to stability that no longer fits. Or you're resisting necessary change. Unlike Saturn, Uranus doesn't pressure you slowly. It wakes you up abruptly. If it's not making strong aspects in your chart, it may feel like background restlessness. If it is, it can feel like a personal revolution. The sign Uranus retrogrades in matters, because it determines how that awakening expresses itself psychologically. This isn't about houses or visible events. It's about internal liberation and evolving identity. Uranus retrograde asks, where are you ready to break your own rules? Uranus retrograde in Aries destabilizes identity at the core. The external impulse to act independently may quiet down, but internally the question becomes louder. Who am I without reacting? You may begin noticing how much of your independence was built in opposition to something. Authority, expectations, past wounds. Restlessness builds when you realize your identity may have been shaped by rebellion rather than authenticity. The life theme examined is self-definition. The lesson is learning that true independence isn't reactionary. It's self-aware and intentional. Uranus retrograde in Taurus unsettles what feels secure. Financial habits, comfort zones, routines, even attachment to stability begin to feel less solid internally. You may realize that what once felt safe now feels limiting. Resistance to change becomes obvious, especially where security has been confused with stagnation. The life theme examined is material identity and self-worth. The lesson is understanding that stability must evolve, or it becomes a cage. Uranus retrograde in Gemini rewires mental patterns. Thoughts you've repeated for years begin to feel outdated. You may detach from conversations, narratives, or belief loops that once defined you. Sudden realizations can occur, the kind that permanently shift perspective. The life theme examined is intellectual freedom. The lesson is breaking free from inherited ideas and allowing your mind to reinvent itself. Uranus retrograde in Cancer quietly disrupts emotional conditioning. Family roles, protective instincts, and attachment patterns come under internal review. You may feel detached from emotional reactions that once felt automatic. Security becomes less about comfort and more about authenticity. The life theme examined is emotional independence. The lesson is realizing that loyalty to the past cannot override growth. Uranus retrograde in Leo challenges ego-based identity. The need for recognition may begin to feel hollow. Creative expression shifts, not to impress but to liberate. You may realize that certain performances were maintained for approval rather than authenticity. The life theme examined is creative truth. The lesson is learning that real individuality doesn't require applause. Uranus retrograde in Virgo disrupts control mechanisms. Perfectionism, routines, and systems that once created stability may start to feel restrictive. You may become aware of how micromanaging details has limited innovation. Anxiety can surface when control weakens, but so can breakthroughs. The life theme examined is adaptability within order. The lesson is understanding that progress requires flexibility, not flawless execution. Uranus retrograde in Libra destabilizes relationship patterns internally. You may question compromises you once justified. Harmony that required self-silencing becomes harder to maintain. Emotional detachment may increase as you reassess what balance truly means. The life theme examined is relational authenticity. The lesson is recognizing that peace without truth is temporary. Uranus retrograde in Scorpio intensifies psychological awakening. Control patterns, emotional power dynamics, and deep attachments feel less stable. You may suddenly detach from something you once felt fused to. Hidden fears around loss or vulnerability surface for liberation. The life theme examined is transformation through release. The lesson is that liberation requires surrender, not domination. Uranus retrograde in Sagittarius destabilizes belief systems. Philosophies that once felt absolute may feel incomplete. You may question long-held truths, mentors, or life direction. Expansion becomes less about distance and more about internal awakening. The life theme examined is intellectual evolution. The lesson is allowing your worldview to grow without needing certainty. Uranus retrograde in Capricorn disrupts ambition and authority structures. Career identity, long-term goals, and public image may feel less aligned with who you're becoming. You may internally detach from definitions of success that once motivated you. The life theme examined is authentic authority. The lesson is redefining achievement on your own terms rather than inherited standards. Uranus retrograde in Aquarius intensifies self-awareness. You may feel detached from groups, roles, or collective identities you once identified with. Innovation turns inward. You begin questioning how much of your individuality has been shaped by ideology. The life theme examined is personal authenticity within collective spaces. The lesson is being unique without isolating yourself. Uranus retrograde in Pisces dissolves illusions quietly but powerfully. Spiritual beliefs, escapism patterns, and emotional boundaries feel less stable. You may wake up to ways you've blurred reality to avoid discomfort. Intuition sharpens, but so does the need for grounding. The life theme examined is spiritual authenticity. The lesson is integrating imagination with discernment. Across all signs, Uranus retrograde reveals one shared truth: growth requires disruption. This retrograde isn't about chaos, it's about awakening. Working with Uranus retrograde means allowing yourself to outgrow what no longer fits instead of clinging to familiarity. When Uranus stations direct again, external change often follows the internal shift. Thank you for watching Celestial Zodiac. If this Uranus retrograde insight resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share for more astrology content that helps you understand these cycles on a deeper level. Until next time, evolve with intention.